pressure. Richardson trying to get away. Chucks it downfield. Incomplete. 9 wins for Mike Norvell. A chance to get to double digits in bowl season. And tonight, we witnessed the highest scoring game in series history.
Look, Ma, we're state champs. After a big high-scoring win over the Gators, the Seminoles go into bowl season with a 5-game winning streak. Hello, everybody. I am Chris Heidel here on the Sports Talk with Chris Heidel, and I'm with Adam Remise down in beautiful North Carolina. Wherever you are, I hope you're safe wherever you are. If you're in down there in the South in Mississippi and all that stuff, please be careful with these tornadoes around. It's really bad. That stuff is coming our way there, Adam. So anybody down there, be careful. We're going to have a great show tonight. It's championship week here on Sports Talk with Chris Heidel. We'll preview the Sun Belt Championship game between Troy and Coastal Carolina. But Coastal Carolina became the representative of the Eastern Conference because of James Madison University is still technically trying to do the transition from division, the bowl subdivision to the Power 5. So they couldn't represent the league in the Eastern Conference. So they technically get part of a trophy, but they don't get the opportunity to play in the championship game. To me, that really stinks. I feel like if you bust your tail for the whole entire season and you win, your first ever year in that conference, it means something that you are a legit program, knows how to play in a Power 5 conference. So we'll talk to the voice of the Coastal Carolina, Joe Castone, at 7:05. We'll talk about that game last weekend down in Harrisonburg, Virginia, because that was the battle for the Eastern Conference. And then at 7:15 on the phone, we'll have Michael Dillwinter, who covers the college. He's a pro analyst and co-host of Sports Talk down in New Orleans. We'll go down there and talk LSU football with him. Brian Kelly, that guy that George Bashir does not like to talk about, is actually in the SEC title game for the first time. So that's not bad for his first year. We didn't in September after Florida State beating them on Labor Day weekend, they were going to be playing for a conference title game. They thought, Florida State killed them. So it's really very interesting that, what you play in September does not mean what comes up in November or December. You could go 0-2 in September or 0-4 in September and still turn around and still win the title game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then at 7:30, we'll take a little break from college football and get on to the Professional Bowlers Tour. Our good friend Francois Boulois will be joining us. I think I practiced that all day long because I was thinking of Dave Ryan, because Dave Ryan does a great job with that name.
Yeah. Sure does, Chris.
We'll talk to him because he just got back from bowling down under with the World Cup of Bowling down there in Australia. So he was down there for 2 weeks. So he was representing Team Canada. Yeah, so I don't know how he did with the team, but I know Kyle Troop and Chris Prather and I think a couple of and
AJ Johnson and Jacob Butcher, they took home the gold medal for
the Team USA, beating Puerto Rico, USA. And what's that guy, Christina Uzuna, beat his team. So that's pretty interesting there. So let's bring on Joe here. Joe Castone is a voice of the Coastal Carolina. They'll be rolling into Troy this weekend in Alabama, if there is a Troy, Alabama, because I know there's some bad storms in that area right now. So, hi, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, guys. Doing good. How are y'all?
Not bad. Thanks for coming on. And congratulations on making to the championship game. I know last week playing JMU, and JMU couldn't, they beat you pretty heavily in Harrisonburg, but they couldn't represent the East because they're still in that transition mode. So basically, you got the parting gift of going to Troy. They get the parting gift of staying home and get half a trophy, right?
Well, we're excited about going to Troy. For sure to play in this championship game. We didn't have a chance to 2 years ago. Now we have the opportunity to do that. have to go to a tough place to play against a really, really good football team in Troy. You know, they really got things turned around in the first year of John Summerall, but we are absolutely looking forward to it. And, you know, yeah, we took some lumps last week, but, you know, that was JMU's Super Bowl. You know, that was their bowl game. That was their championship game. They are ineligible to go anywhere the first 2 years. Their FBS transition. Of course, they know that. They knew what they were getting into. And so, you know, there you go. There you have it. So we win it, you know, and we're going. So we're happy about it.
Yeah, you guys had to do the same thing years ago, right?
Well, that's kind of the thing, you know, Chris, that's kind of the thing. You know, everybody that comes up has to go through it. We did it. App State did it. Georgia Southern did it in our league. And so you have that 2-year transition period, whether you agree with it or not. It's there, and it's still a rule. And now, you know, James Madison kind of they might have made a case this season that maybe you don't need that. With the transfer portal and NIL, you can go out and grab players in year one, be immediately ready to go, which they were. And to their credit, they were able to do that. But the rules in place, they're not eligible, and that's life.
Yeah, I think it was, and plus also you could tell about the program. That means, you know, they played in the CAA last year at this time, and I guess the CAA is very good that they could transition from the CAA to the Sun Belt without having any issues.
That's true. Again, you can go out in the portal and find guys, and they did that. A number of positions on their team, portal guys right away. Their quarterback, you know, guy that came in from Colorado State, he was ready to go. Wouldn't have done that if they hadn't made this move, I would imagine. But hey, you know, that's them and we're us. So we're going on to play in the championship. I
wish the game was at your field because I love your color of your field. I think it's so great with that, you know, with the color, you know, the color of your team and all that stuff on the field. I think that's better than the Eastern Washington with the fire engine red field, and you're like trying to go like, oh my God, what happened here? Yeah, you know, I think your field is like the coolest field in the college football.
We appreciate that, and it's a branding thing. You know, if you see the teal field, hopefully you think of Coastal Carolina right away. Yeah, that Eastern Washington fire engine red field is kind of tough to look at, and yeah, you have a number of these fields around the country that they're not the green traditional football field. But yeah, we wish we were playing at home too, and that was on the line last week, and we didn't get it done, and so now we have to go on the road and play in what I think will be a great environment. It's going to be tough. You're not going to have Alabama or Auburn to go up against. You know, if you're a Troy, you don't have those fans to go anywhere except to come to their place. And so I expect 30,000 plus on hand at the Vet, what they call their home field, and it's a tough place to play. But hey, you know, we have been an outstanding road team. You know, not looking back at last week, but since 2020, we have been an outstanding road team. We seem to get it together when we have to go away from home.
Exactly. Adam, you got a question?
Yeah. First of all, Joe, I have been when it comes to Coastal Carolina, you guys have been, you think back to the COVID year of 2020, you guys have played Kansas, and you've beat Kansas in Conway and in Lawrence. You guys have beat BYU at home. You guys have had some tough non-conference games. Next year, you guys play UCLA at the Rose Bowl, and now tell us about what it's been like, you know, the atmosphere in Conway over these last couple of years.
It's been amazing, to tell you the truth. I mean, you go back to, you mentioned the COVID year of 2020. We didn't even know that we were going to play in 2020 as late as August. If you remember back to, you know, what the landscape was, I don't think anybody really knew what was going to happen. Would we even, you know, would colleges have students back on campus? Would they open up for intercollegiate athletics? We didn't know what was going to happen. Fortunately, we were able to play, and we were able to parlay that season into something that was just a thing of magic. I mean, because there were obviously conferences and teams that didn't play, and so there was some TV inventory that had to be filled. And yeah, well, there it is right there. There's the 2020 game against Troy right there. We get the sack fumble at the end of the game. Jeff Gunter forced that thing, but you know, we were able to play and fill some gaps and just have a terrific season. There's Grayson McCall taking the last snap right there, and he was really the catalyst who came on in 2020. We didn't really know who the quarterback was going to be to start that season. We had some ideas, but, you know, we didn't know who the guy was. Well, that guy right there stepped up, and he's been the guy for the last 3 years. We have had some great wins, and we were able to turn that 2020 season into something that was incredibly special, that just captured the imagination of not just our fans, but I think a lot of people across the country. especially when College Game Day came and we beat BYU on December the 5th of that year.
Yes.
I mean, that was just a phenomenal college football game. It was great. Yeah, and it was put together in about 48 hours. It wasn't announced until Thursday morning of game week when we had all kind of crazy things happen. But yeah, these last couple of years have been just absolutely phenomenal. 31-5. I mean, one of the winningest programs in all of college football. And people see the Chanticleer logo and they know what they're looking at. They know that's Coastal. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can continue this ride in the immediate future. We'll see.
Yeah, I remember that week. It was supposed to be you guys taking on Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And then Liberty got hit with the COVID, and then you're scrambling, and BYU was like, "Hey, we could play," and then okay, we'll come down, and then that game was prime time, and I think it was mid-afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock, whatever it was, because I remember watching it here going, "Okay, this is a good game," So, and then ever since then, BYU hasn't, they've been back to Liberty this year and lost, but it's fascinating. They haven't been back on the East Coast in a very long time except for this year.
That was a crazy week. I mean, you talking about we're getting ready. We find out on Sunday afternoon after we'd clinched the Sun Belt Championship, Sun Belt East against Texas State. I think we found out on Sunday that they were coming, that College Game Day was coming, and we knew that we had Liberty coming in. And again, that was a game that wasn't on the original 2020 schedule. I mean, if you remember, conferences, the Southeastern Conference went all in with their own teams. They didn't have any outside play with any non-conference games. I mean, the Big 12 went only one conference, non-conference, and you had to play that at home. And there were things that we had to do. Some teams dropped off our schedule, so we picked up Liberty. Liberty's a long-time rival of Coastal going back into the Big South days. A lot of Big South championships at stake when us and them used to get together. But that game was on the schedule. They were nationally ranked, and so were we. And so College Game Day said, hey, we're going to go to Conway. It's the biggest game on the schedule this weekend. We get to Wednesday. All of a sudden, you start seeing reports out of Lynchburg that, hey, Malik Willis tested positive. Some other people tested positive. And you're like, oh, Lord. First of all, you're hoping they're okay, right? You're thinking,
right.
Okay, well, hopefully they're going to be all right with this. But the game is off. And so once in a lifetime opportunity is going to go by the boards. And then the next thing I start hearing that, hey, it may not be over yet. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? And then, of course, Thursday morning, here comes BYU. They divert their equipment truck. They say, hey, just go east and then head to the coast of South Carolina. That's where you need to go. And then, of course, we just turned out to be just a phenomenal late afternoon game on national TV.
That's awesome. Adam, you had a question?
Yeah. Now, Joe, talk to us about your team this year. You guys clinched Sun Belt East. There's some really good teams in the Sun Belt. The four additional teams that have come in this year: Southern Miss, Marshall, James Madison, Old Dominion. There's Appalachian State. So, give us some keys on how Coastal Carolina can bring home a Sun Belt championship to Conway on Saturday.
This season has been one where we have gotten by the hair on our chinny chin in a bunch of games. We have just found a way to win, which speaks to the culture that we have right now going on. We've won 9 games this season. We're a 9-2 football team, and our point differential is +7. Think about that for a second. All right. We won 9 games and we're +7 in the point differential, meaning we won a lot of close games. And I think if we're going to win on Saturday, it's going to come down to that same thing. I mean, Troy has the best defense I think that we've seen all year long. That's what our coaches think. And we've seen some really good defenses in the Sun Belt East, I promise you. Marshall, who may be playing as good of football as anybody right now in our league, they are really, really good. Southern Miss, a great addition to our league with a lot of tradition and history in football. They were tough to go up against. JMU last week. I mean, holy cow, their front seven was as good as anybody we've seen. And our coaches think Troy is better than all 3 of those teams. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So, again, we're a question mark at quarterback. Who knows what we're going to have right there? It's going to be a close game, going to be a tough, hard-fought game. We think, our defense at times has played very well this season. We've got to get a little more consistent there, I think. And I think our coaches would tell you that. But if we are going to win this game, it's probably going to be a down to the wire, be a close game. We're going to have to make a play or two and hopefully not turn the ball over and come out of Troy with a win.
That's true. Well, Joe, thanks so much for coming on tonight, and I hope you have a safe trip to Troy, and hopefully the weather's great down there in Alabama, and hopefully you guys pull out a big win and I guess you guys win, you move on to the Cure Bowl. Is that the winning prize, or you go to a better bowl game?
Well, it really depends on the pecking order. ESPN, I think, has the first, third, and fourth picks in terms of, because they've got a lot. And there's just a lot of moving and shaking. The Sun Belt has a lot of bowl tie-ins. To Cure Bowl is one. I wouldn't mind the Cure Bowl again, honestly. I mean, that was a great experience last year in Orlando. That is a great bowl game for a G5 to go to. Would love to go back, but who knows? Could be New Orleans, could be the Lending Tree, whatever. We're just excited to be going bowling wherever it is.
That's cool. All right, Joe. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.
All right, Chris and Adam. Thanks so much.
Nice to see you.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Joe.
All right, that's Joe Cashton, who is the voice of the Coastal Carolina. Let's bring in one of the major voices down south in Louisiana, who covers a lot of the Louisiana sports from the Saints to LSU football, even does probably minor league baseball. I guess the Zippers. I think that's minor league baseball too. Let's bring in Michael Deltwither, who is one of the major broadcasters down in Louisiana. Hi, Michael. How are you doing? And thank you for coming on the Sports Talk with Chris Heidel.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for asking me on.
All right. So this big week down in New Orleans, or the state of Louisiana, Brian Kelly, after the first game of the year against Florida State, losing on that blocked field goal, somehow, and by a miracle, they're in the SEC title game against Georgia. And what do you see in this big game against Georgia? What can they do to knock off right now the number one team in the college football playoff?
Well, I think even Brian Kelly would tell you he's surprised to be in this spot. If you put him on the lie detector machine and he said anything different, he'd blow the circuits, because no one thought they'd be in this position. One, they're going to have a little help. Georgia's going to have to turn the football over. But I think it's going to be matching the physicality of Georgia up front, offensive, defensive line. And that means basically you got to stop the run better than you did last Saturday, which you didn't do at all. They still trying to bring down Devin A-Chain from Texas A&M. And Georgia saw that film. They're going to try to run the football. And also, going to have to get some heat on Stetson Bennett. I think they can match up with the receivers. Here's the big thing, and everybody's got problems with it. When you got Bowers and Washington at tight end, who are you going to match up secondary-wise against those guys? You rarely see a college team with that type talent at the tight end position. And so you're going to have to get a little bit of help. And you're going to have to hit some big plays in the passing game. And if Georgia decides to blitz, I think they're going to be surprised with the speed and quickness of Jaden Daniels. I mean, he runs, his gait is like Usain Bolt. You don't think he's running fast till you're on the track with him. And you say, man, that guy is fast. And so certain things have to happen. They're a 17.5-point underdog. I think they'll keep that game closer than that, but it would be a major upset for LSU to beat Georgia. Georgia's the better team, but it ain't a series of 3 or 5 or 7. It's one game. And what type of attitude will Georgia have for this game? They're in the college football Final Four no matter what. And so it'll be interesting to see the focus for this LSU team, which did not have it last Saturday against Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah, last Saturday against Texas A&M. I guess they were you don't want to say they're looking forward to the SEC championship game. I think they're just I think all the Thanksgiving turkeys and all that stuff, I think they kind of slow down. And I guess the next time Brian Kelly needs to cut back on the stuffing and the turkey and let them eat something else. But if they're playing Georgia, I feel like they might have the edge because they beat Georgia a couple years ago with some guy named Joe Burrow, who's doing a very fantastic job in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Chris, I'll tell you a quick story. That week, I was at practice, and Joe passed by me, and I said, man, what do you think about the game? He said, money. He always called me coach. Money, coach, money. We got it. That was Joe.
Wow.
He didn't think anybody could beat him. And, he was that confident a guy that said, I've covered LSU for 37 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's the most unique guy I've covered here. Really. He had a swagger. He was quiet about it, but he let you know that if you thought you were going to beat him or beat LSU, you're going to be in for quite a long wait, because that was his feeling. I'm going to take you on. This is a little different LSU team from a standpoint. They don't throw the football as well, and they could not have the same receivers.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about they had Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall. That was that top three. And Racing McMath was the fourth guy who's on the Tennessee Titans roster. So they were loaded at wide receiver. And but, man, defensively, that's been the big surprise to me this year, how well this LSU team has played. They had about 40 players left over from the Coach O regime. And they were thin. Now, some of those players are really good now. I mean, you just don't inherit the team all the time, and you got a B.J. Ojolari, an Ali Gay, Jaqueline Roy, Micah Baskerville, Jay Warren, Major Burns, Greg Penn. They had 7 starters from a year ago back. But the 4 freshmen have really been the story. It's amazing. Other than Daniels, his emergence at quarterback, to see the 2 starting tackles, and Emory Jones and Will Campbell, and then Mason and to watch Harold Perkins, that linebacker. I never thought I'd see a guy have a bigger impact as a freshman as Tyrann Mathieu did. Tyrann, they played him all over the board. He was a safety, a corner, a part-time linebacker, you name it. And he was huge as a freshman. Harold Perkins has played better than what Tyrann did as a true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's saying something.
Wow, that's awesome. Adam, you got a question for
me? Yeah, no, Michael, since you cover LSU, I have been a big fan of LSU this year, especially after coming back, to be in the SEC championship game after their loss to Florida State, to kick off the season. But what's been the atmosphere down there in Baton Rouge since the Florida State loss?
I never heard so much disdain about, man, why did we hire Brian Kelly after the Florida State game? And my thing is, listen, Brian Kelly's won a lot of games in their different programs. You got to give this a little bit of time. And it became gradual. And then LSU wet the diaper against Tennessee at home. I mean, they just got crushed by Hendon Hooker and the Volunteers. And since that game, this team has played with a very quiet confidence about themselves. And things have changed. They got a lot of people hitting the delete button on what they said about Brian Kelly. Brian has brought some structure, some organization, a way of doing things a certain way. And I think he's brought that culture with him that, listen, we're not going to be an up and down team. And he came on with us on WWL radio in August. And so I had done a speaking engagement with Brian. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, hey, what's the over and under in Vegas? And I said, either 6.5 or 7 wins. And he kind of gave me a smirk. So I asked him on air, Brian, Vegas is saying either 6.5 or 7 wins for LSU. What do you got to say about that? And he's like, hey, Mike, I didn't come here to win 7 games. He was right. I mean, he brought that attitude of, man, I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to do it my way. We're going to win. And if you don't like it, hey, I'm sorry. But I think some of that had to do with the fact Brian was not from here. He wasn't like Coach O. Coach O grew up with me on the Bayou. Nice. He was a Bayou guy. But Les Miles and Nick Saban weren't Louisiana or Southern guys. But people have short memories about that. It has changed dramatically, the perception and reality of Brian Kelly as a head coach since that Florida State game.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I really seriously think Brian Kelly, you see new coaches coming in, and they're still playing. Some of the players are still from the old regime. You're going to see. When will you see Brian Kelly's players coming into that system? What, next year or 2 years from now?
I think, one of the things he told me, I don't care how we got him. I don't care how we got him. Like he said, listen, the guys Coach O left for me, those were 4- and 5-star recruits. I didn't get a 1- or 2-star. I got some big-time recruits. And so those guys, we embraced them. They were heavy in the transfer portal because they got wiped out at cornerback. You lost Stingley and Cordell Flott early to the NFL draft. And then Elias Ricks, he made a business decision. He went to Alabama. And McLaughlin made a business decision. He went to Arkansas. Your top 4 corners, going back Cohen, out of here. So he had to redo the cornerback spot. And the other position was offensive line. But I think you're seeing it more and more, him playing freshman. Their recruiting class of this year, which looks like a top 5 class, that what he's saying is, okay, look, the 4 guys that are playing for us. Some coaches might sing you that song about you can play here as a freshman. I can prove it. 4 of those guys from this last recruiting class, they started for me. So I think the biggest recruit for 2023 for Brian Kelly is Jaden Daniels, to get him to come back and play another year. Because if that happens, he would be in a position similar to Hendon Hooker was for Tennessee a year ago. Hendon came to the Manning camp this year, and I got a chance to talk to him for quite some time. And he told me he seriously considered coming out early for the NFL draft. And he decided to stay. And look how he has propelled Tennessee's program. They got hurt, and his season's over. But I think Daniels could have a similar type impact, where this would be a double-digit winning season, and arguably the best player they have on defense, Mason Smith, a defensive tackle who lives about 15 minutes from my home. Mm-hmm. He got hurt in the first game of the season against Florida State. He's returning.
Wow.
So you got a lot of talent coming back, and Brian's told me we're going to be choosy about transfer portal people. We are still going to get some, but it's going to be in specific areas. He wants to build through the high school recruiting areas and then pick and choose where you may lose a player or graduation hits you hard. Potentially, LSU could have all 5 starting offensive linemen return next year, and their swingman, Dellinger, return. Mm-hmm. Man, when you got your top 6 offensive linemen returning and the potential of your quarterback and Mason coming back along with Perkins, your linebacking core, it's nice building blocks for 2023.
That's true. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know you're driving home from your show. Thanks for joining us. Where can people listen to you? Because I know here in Maryland, a lot of people have, XM radio. They have stuff on their phones. Where can they find you if they want to listen to some great LSU action?
It's the Big 870 WWL radio. Is the biggest radio station east of the Rockies. We have a young lady that's in your part of the neck of the woods, Nicole Kelsey, comes on with us from time to time to talk to us. And so, Big 870, it's the biggest radio station in the Deep South. And we got a lot of football talk. There's not a lot of baseball talk going on here, unless it's LSU baseball. And we are the flagship station for LSU and the New Orleans Saints, which we're not even going to talk about.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
Lousy this year. That's been lousy.
Exactly. Well, yeah, Kelsey's a good friend of ours here on the station, so we'll say, hope you see her, and thanks for coming on. And she told me about you, so I'm like, let me get you on the program. Yeah, so she's a good friend of ours. So thanks so much for coming on.
All right, guys, y'all take care. God bless.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. All right, that's Michael Diller, who covers the Saints and everybody down in New Orleans, and a good friend and a friend of the program, Kelsey, Nelson, who does a lot of good stuff down in DC with DC Sports. We had her on, a couple of months ago for basketball. So, let's bring in this gentleman. This guy is a true pro on the professional bowler tour. A good friend of ours here on the program. He's one of the new breeds. Only guy, and it should be a trivia question tonight. Who are the only two bowlers have bowled two perfect games on television? And his name is not, Bob Benoit or, Chris Vive and this gentleman. Adam, go ahead.
Our next guest, his first career win was the 2016 U.S. Open in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he bowled a 300 game. Last year, he won the 2021 Kia Tournament of Champions at Jupiter, Florida. And earlier this year, he was a member of the Las Vegas High Rollers in the PBA League. So let's welcome in this former Wichita State Shocker and fan of the Montreal Canadiens, Francois Lavoie. Francois, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, looking at his 2016 bowling the perfect game on CBS Sports in the U.S. Open. So that must be so awesome to do the first time winning your first major, bowling a perfect game on television. That must have been cool, right? I guess you can hear it. Can you hear us, Francois? I guess the weather is affecting everything.
Francois, can you hear me?
Maybe. Yeah, I can hear you guys a little bit. It's cutting up a little bit though.
But we can hear you now. You sound pretty okay. Probably because of the weather in the area. Where are you right now?
Maybe. I'm in Wichita right now.
Okay. All right. Okay. Might be because of weather around the area. So how you doing, sir? How's everything going?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I'm ready to get back into bowling.
Yeah, you bowled.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Last 2 weeks you were down under bowling down at World Cup, so that must have been cool. Bowling against everybody you saw on, up here on the Professional Bowler Tour, but it was all, team competition and all that stuff. So how did Team Canada do?
Yeah, I love bowling for Canada. It's such a different thing than bowling on tour. You're bowling on tour. That's what we do for a living. But there's no prize fund when we're bowling for Team Canada. We're just doing it for the pride of our country. We're doing it for the love of competition, and it's always a lot of fun. How do we do? We did okay. We obviously, unless you win, I think we always wish it could have gone better. But all right, we lost in the quarterfinals to Team Australia and Jason Belmonte and Sam Cooley. So yeah, wish it would have been better. But overall, we had a great couple weeks in Australia, and it was another good time, another good tournament.
Yeah. Just talk about your 2022 season. Any highs and lows? Anything you have to work on this year to get ready for next year on 2023? You got some great tournaments coming up. What do you have to work on now until what, middle of January, Adam?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. We start. That's right. We start middle of January. The U.S. Open is the first one up this year, middle to end of January. 2022 for me was it was okay. I had some successes and some struggles. Everyone goes through those. I think nobody's really at the top all the time in bowling. Made the show the Players Championship to start the year. Finished, I think, 10th or 11th at the U.S. Open. So 2 good performances in the majors, and then a little bit more struggle towards the as we got into the flow bowling events, the smaller events, and TOC back in Akron. That was good. I think that was my first time making match play in that building, a place that I've struggled in the past. So I was able to make some changes and perform a little bit better. I was happy with that, and then some various successes at different levels, not so much on tour, but when you bowl for a living, you have to find a way to make money somehow. And so whether that's the big money events or bowling well in smaller events, it's just another way to make money. So It was good. I'm working on some stuff now. The physical game. It's hard when you're not constantly, when we're used to competing all the time, and you get to a period where there's a lot of downtime and we're not competing as much. It's hard to stay sharp all the time. So I'm feeling, or I was feeling, a little bit off with my physical game. So I'm working on some stuff now, kind of changing my tempo, trying to fixing my timing a little bit, and hopefully work on some things that allow me to get my hand in a different spot at the release point to hopefully strike more and compete with the rest of the professionals out there.
Yeah. Let me bring in the mayor of Portland.
Yeah. I will see you next September in Portland, Maine. I mean, it wouldn't be the same without me at the PBA League, right, Francois? So talk to us about what was it like to what was it like to compete at the IBF World Cup in Queensland? I know it was there was a unique scoring system. So what was it like representing Team Canada and seeing the best of the best compete, for their respective countries?
Hope you can still hear us. I guess with the weather.
Still cutting up pretty bad here.
Yeah, we'll just wrap it up here real quick. So, Adam came on here.
I can hear you guys now, I think.
Okay. Adam, repeat that real quick for
what was it like to compete in Queensland, Australia for 2 weeks, Francois, representing Team Canada?
What does it mean? Is that the question? Sorry, cutting up at the wrong times.
What was it like to compete for Team Canada?
Yeah, like I said when we started this, it's always a lot of fun for me. It's something I take great pride in. I just do it because I like it. It's bowling for your country is something that I wanted to do when I was a kid, and when I started bowling, that was one of my first goals. Before even thinking about the PBA Tour, I just wanted to be on Team Canada and represent my country. And it's something that even to this day, like I said, even though there's no prize, we just do it out of pride, and we do it because we love to compete, and we get to meet a lot of people from all over the world, and we get to travel to some places I normally maybe wouldn't go and see. So there's it's definitely a lot of fun, on something I plan on doing for some time in the future still.
Yeah. Well, last question before I let you go. What is going on with your Canadians? You're down 1-0 to the Stars. What do you got to do to beat them tonight? Come on, they got to turn this thing around, right?
I know, yeah, we got to turn it around. I guess it's still considered a rebuild year now. We just gotta give the puck to Gold Caulfield. He'll take care of business for us. Suzuki's not bad either. They both got off to a pretty good start this season.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, if you ever make it to DC, stop on by and say hello to us. Yeah, give me a call and I'll come down and see a game with you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on. Nice to see you again, Adam.
Have a great holiday week.
I'll see you next September in Portland, Francois.
See ya.
All right, see you in Portland.
Take care, guys. Francois.
Bye. All right, that's Francois Brohm from the Professional Bowlers Tour. A little sorry for the connection, folks, with the with the weather in bad weather in the south, and we got snow up in. I wish we had George here. George is the weather guy.
Yeah.
I know. Why can't he just give us a report from the basketball arena?
Why not? I think
why not? I told him, like, he's in 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks he's traveling for work, and I said to him, like, it's like, can you just give us an update?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was Francois Brohm, the Professional Bowlers Tour, back in action in 2023 with great stops along the way. Plus, there's stops in my neck of the woods.
That's
got one in
right, Chris.
Delaware, and New Jersey. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see that Mark Roth, Marshall Holman doubles thing. Is that going to be televised?
I'm assuming it'll probably be on YouTube on They haven't announced anything yet, so I'm assuming that's where it's gonna be located. So we'll probably hear an announcement probably before the season starts. I mean, it's gonna be cool to have the double championship in Delaware, so fans like yourself can go and see some of the best doubles action on the PBA Tour.
Exactly. Tim Newton, the voice of the Purdue Boilermakers in football, basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball. This gentleman right here you see on our far right will be joining us shortly here on the program. Big game this weekend in Indianapolis between the Purdue Boilermakers, who are technically the home team, because that's the state of Indiana. That's the state school. So technically they are the home team, but they're not really the home team because Indianapolis is just like that. It's like Baltimore with you got all the different teams around the area. So they're going to take on a really tough Michigan squad who's ranked second in the college football playoff, who basically told Ohio State last week in Columbus, "See you, Jack. Have a great day.
Hit the road.
Hit the road." Yeah. And what a big win by Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines, and they go to Indianapolis to face Purdue. Let's do some of our. I had some cool clips here. Did I put that on there? No, hold on. We do this in this today in sports history and all that stuff. So let me pull this up here if I can find it. Hold on here. I think I had it here somewhere. Lost it. Okay. Anyway, in this sports history, on this date in 1976, some guy named Reggie Jackson, told the Yankees, I'll sign a 5-year deal. Yeah, and he started a lot of. He became the straw that stirred the drink up there in the Bronx. It was his swagger and his mannerisms, and I'm the best, and he got in fights with Billy Martin, and and that whole book they have called The Bronx Zoo. That's all about the '77 New York Yankees. The Bronx Zoo. And then on this date in 2002, they had a concert for George Harrison, a former Beatle, at Royal Albert Hall in London. Big names came up for the benefit memorial for George Harrison. Eric Clapton, who was married to George Harrison's wife, Alayla, and that's where that song came from. Or I think it was Alayla. I think it was, and then Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Jeff Lynne from EFO, and Tom Petty and Joe Brown, and you name it, they got it. They got it on the bill. So let's play a clip real quick. This is Paul McCartney singing a classic George Harrison song, "My Guitar Gently Weeps." So here it is. It's all things must pass, not "My Guitar Gently Weeps." My fault on that one. That's why I'm not a disc jockey. I used to be a disc jockey, back in the day. So let's bring in Tim Newton. Before we bring in Tim, I had a chance to talk to Coach Brohm on the phone on Sunday, and I asked him about how you can contain Brohm, the running back from Michigan, and this is his answer.
Christopher Heidel. Christopher, your mic is open.
Hey, Coach. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Congratulations on the big win yesterday and going to the Big Ten title game. What did you do against Michigan? They have a really good running game in Chrome. How are you going to stop them on Saturday?
Well, that's a good question. And, without question, they've proven how talented and how good they really are. The running game's off the charts. They have an athletic quarterback who's playing at a high level, fantastic offensive line, a plethora of tight ends that continue to come in there, and they just run the football and they pound it at you, and they play Big Ten football at its best. Defensively, they played lights out all year long, and it's going to be a challenge. So without question, we're playing, if not the top team in the country, one of the top teams, and they've displayed that every week, and we're going to have our hands full. So we just got to make sure we study up as hard as we can, put in a lot of good work, and then try to cut it loose come game day.
All right, let's bring in Tim Newton, the voice of the Boilermakers. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Chris, I'm doing fine. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on tonight. Big game, big week for you guys. For you it was a big week because you got women's basketball tomorrow night against Syracuse, and this is the final of the Big Ten ACC Challenge because that's going to be gone next year with the Big Ten going to their new schedule, and I guess ESPN is not part of it anymore. And then the big game Saturday night down in good old Indianapolis, Indiana. So a big week for Purdue sports.
It is, and the men's basketball team is rolling along, going from number 24 to number 5 this week in the AP poll with 3 wins last week. So, yeah, it was one of the better weekends that Purdue's had in quite a while.
Yeah. So let's talk about this game. I just talked to Coach Brohm on Sunday. Brohm, kid from this area, he's from D.C., good running back. One of those catalysts for Michigan's offense. If you get him rolling, I guess McCarthy will get the passing going. This is going to be if you're in Purdue, you got to stop those two, or else it's going to be a long, long evening in Indianapolis.
Well, and it's not only that, but Donovan Edwards is probably just as good. He's the number 2 running back, and he's really talented, and they've got a great stable of receivers. And we had the Big Ten defensive honors go out today, and 11 different Michigan players got first, second, or third team or honorable mention. That's basically an entire defense that was named all conference. They're one of the top teams in the nation in scoring. They're one of the top teams in the nation from stopping people from scoring. Bottom line, it's going to be a big challenge Saturday night for Purdue.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Michigan and Purdue has played each other. I see it was 2017.
Yeah, it was
so long.
Well, it was 2017, and the way the Big Ten works is basically you play everybody in your division every year, at least for the next couple of years. Now the divisions are going to go away in 2024. And then you play the crossover teams once every 3 years. So Purdue played in 2017, which was Jeff Brown's first year. They were scheduled to go to Michigan in 2020, and then COVID disrupted that entire schedule, and Purdue never played them that year. So they are scheduled to play at Michigan next year, and it's the first time Purdue has traveled to Michigan since 2011. So it's been a long time since we've been up and played in the Big House.
Yeah, I found this on YouTube, the last game in 2017. It looked like it was a competitive game. Don't get me wrong. Back then Michigan wasn't the Michigan that we know right now. Team that won 24 regular season games in a row. It's a different squad, but you guys hung in there.
Yeah, it was a competitive game. And I tell you the thing I remember about that game, it was hot. I think it was about 95 degrees that day. It was Purdue's homecoming, and a lot of people had to be assisted out because of the heat that day. So, that was a pretty memorable day. And yeah, Purdue got off to a good start in that game, but just couldn't maintain it. But this is a much, much better Michigan team than that team we saw in 2017. Their defense was good then, but their offense wasn't nearly as good as what it is now.
Adam, you got a question?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on capturing the Big Ten West Division title. And you guys have some momentum on your side, grabbing the old Oaken Bucket Trophy against your arch rival Indiana last Saturday in Bloomington. And now you guys got to face a team that is have total Ohio State got goodbye. And so you think it'll be a close game on Saturday, or do you think it'll be a close game on Saturday between Michigan and Purdue?
Well, I hope so. Right now, I think the last odds I saw were Michigan was favored by something like 17. And I think that's, given the records of each team and the numbers coming in, I think that's a fair number. I will point out one stat, and it's something we've been using all week. Jeff Brohm, since he came to Purdue in 2017, has played a top 3 team in the country 3 times. He's 3-0 in those games. Purdue beat number 2 Ohio State in 2018. They beat number 2 Iowa last year, and they beat number 3 Michigan State last year. All of those teams were unbeaten when Purdue played them and beat them. So I'm not going to say history repeats itself, but it has been done before. And it's, as we pointed out too this week, this is not a best of 7 series. You don't have to beat this team more than once. You have to outplay them for 60 minutes. And so that's the hope. And I think you'll see a team that comes out Saturday night and kind of lays it all on the line. They have nothing to lose. Nobody really expects Purdue to win. So I would expect you'll see them empty the whole bag of tricks come Saturday on all 3 phases of the game.
Yeah. Well, technically, Purdue's the home team, right? This is the home state
No,
game.
actually, Michigan's going to be the home team this year.
Okay.
Yep. So I assume that means they'll be wearing their blue uniforms, and we'll be in some fashion of white,
Yeah,
which
but
is
I'm talking about the
hopefully not a
game
surrender
in the
color.
state. Yeah, I'm talking about
Well,
the
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we're an hour away, so I would expect a lot of Purdue fans in attendance. But I know that Michigan's going to bring a lot of people too, because it's very drivable from Ann Arbor down to Indianapolis. So, and this is Purdue's first trip to Lucas Oil Stadium to play in this game. Now, Jeff Brohm's first game at Purdue was played in Lucas Oil Stadium because the Boilermakers kicked off the 2017 season against Louisville. And actually, that was a team that had Lamar Jackson, and Purdue led that game in the fourth quarter before the Cardinals came back and won it. So, not the first time in Lucas Oil, but the first time for basically everybody on this team.
That's cool. That's awesome. So, if you're, what are the three keys for Purdue to win this game, and basically put a wrench in the college football playoff? But I heard from one of my buddies today, no matter what, Michigan's already in. So
Yeah, I have a hard time imagining Michigan not getting in the playoffs, even if they
Yeah.
lose the game on Saturday night. I think right now the bubble team in the Big Ten is Ohio State, and Ohio State needs some things to go their way, because if TCU, USC, Georgia, and Michigan all win, Ohio State's out, and
Right.
I think we'll see. And I don't know if they've done the draw tonight or done the.
Oh, they have.
Was Alabama ahead of Ohio State or behind them?
Behind them.
Okay.
Yeah, behind.
Because I think that was the big fear, is if Alabama had jumped ahead of Ohio State, then neither one of those teams plays this week. So it would be a problem for one of those. For if Ohio State was behind Alabama, it'd be a problem for them to pass them. Three keys. I think you're going to have to win the turnover battle. I think Purdue will have to get a couple of breaks. They'll have to get a couple of fumble recoveries or interceptions to have a chance. They have to stop the big plays on offense. I just did some work today, and Michigan's had 60 plus plays this year of 20 yards or more. And we saw they did that against Ohio State. They killed the Buckeyes Saturday with big plays. And I think on the flip side, Purdue's going to have to pull off at least a couple of big plays. This Michigan team is just too good defensively to drive down and have 10 or 15 play drives. You're just not going to be able to chip away and get down the field on them. So I think it's control the turnover battle, eliminate the big plays, or at least limit the big plays for Michigan, and then come up with some big plays of their own on offense.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a great game Saturday, and I'm so glad I'm making the trip, the 9-hour drive from here to you guys to see this game, because I'm looking forward to this game, because I know I missed you guys in Syracuse because of, earlier in the year, and I'm like, this is going to be a great game, and I know it's 8:00, and everybody's like, wow, you got the ACC going at the same time, but this one's more like they're playing for something. And instead of the ACC going, I'm playing for the Orange Bowl. This is like, if Purdue wins, they go out to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
And still a great venue to go to, no matter who you're playing against. And with Michigan, if they win, they go to the college football playoff, by Fiesta Bowl or the Peach Bowl or something like that, and face somebody that they haven't played in a very long time. And and if you're Jim Harbaugh, you're glad you saved your job, because this time a couple of years ago he was thinking about going to Minnesota.
Yeah, no question. And you look and they've won 24 games now in the last 2 years, which is more than any Michigan team has done in program history. So he's got it going. And I talked to Coach Brohm all year, and of course we're focused on the West and we're focused on the next team. But I think always in the back of your mind, we would talk during our commercial breaks during his coach's show about Ohio State and Michigan. And he thought all season long that Michigan had the athletes to compete with Ohio State. They're probably the only team in the Big Ten that did. And I think Michigan, that the insertion of J.J. McCarthy at quarterback has given them a bigger threat, because he can run the ball as well as throw it. They've got the great tandem at running back. They've got enough receivers to catch the ball, and they're going to be good defensively. So it's a Michigan team. I think it's a Michigan team that's more well-rounded than Ohio State was, and they may not be as explosive, although they were on Saturday, but they're a much better overall football team, I think, than the Buckeyes. They're much better on defense, and I think they're stronger in special teams.
Yeah, Tim, I saw Michigan against Maryland at the Big House, and I was very impressed by the way Maryland was hanging in there against Michigan. And I know if Maryland did not turn that ball over in the first 2 minutes with that botched kickoff, it would have been a more competitive game. And I went to see Ohio State take on Penn State, and I wasn't impressed by Ohio State. I felt like their quarterback was the only reason why he's good, because he has good receivers. And I feel like when you have good receivers, you look like you're Dan Marino. You know, you don't look like, but if you don't have good receivers, I don't know what he's going to be like in the NFL, but I felt like that day he was throwing stuff against the wall to see if anything sticks.
Yeah.
And some of his passes are bad against Penn State, but he got lucky and they won the game. But I was more impressed by Michigan's stuff.
Yeah, if you look at the track record of the Ohio State quarterbacks in the last few years, I think you see they have great receivers. You mentioned that, and they have them in the NFL now, and they've got another crop that's ready to go into the NFL. But they haven't been able to duplicate that success in the National Football League. And I think Michigan, right now, I think from top to bottom, Michigan is the most talented team in the Big Ten. And again, it's going to be a real challenge on Saturday night.
Exactly. Well, Tim, I hope to see you. I hope I get there just in time before the meal, because I heard there's going to be good food there in Indianapolis. And hopefully the game is great. And I hope to run into you before the game. And thanks for being such a great guest on our program. And hope to see you Saturday.
Thanks for having me, and have a safe drive out to Indianapolis.
I will. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, that's Tim Newton, the voice of the Boilermakers of Purdue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of Purdue, I do have another interview I did with one of their players, and I did ask him about this. You are the state school. Technically, you are representing the state of Indiana. And if you're in different, like your state in North Carolina, you got so many darn college teams. You got so many people who are representing everybody and their brother. Indiana has nothing to play for except for Purdue. So I asked Charlie. I think it's Charlie Jones or something like that from Purdue. You'll see it on the bottom there. I asked him, what's it like being the school of Indiana playing against Michigan? So here it is. Hey, Charlie, this is Chris Heidel from Hermanson Radio in Baltimore. Do you feel like you guys are the home team because, you're representing the state of Indiana and Michigan's coming from, Michigan? Do you feel like you're more like representing the state?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it. We have great fan base here. Obviously, it's in Indiana. So I think hopefully when we get in there and we look around the stadium, we see a bunch of Purdue fans. So it's awesome that it's right down the road. I guess you could look at it as a second home stadium, second place to be at.
Thanks. That's pretty much.
Yeah. It's called.
If you're representing the state of Indiana, I think that's a lot of pressure on yourself.
Oh, absolutely, Chris. Absolutely.
Plus, I'm going into a place in this area, we don't like to talk about the team with.
Yeah.
Man, we don't.
I mean,
we don't,
it is. I will say that
we don't bring that up here on the program. Yeah. So anyway, if you want to vote right now on our Twitter page, who will win? Who will win the Big Ten championship game on Saturday night? Go to my Twitter page at HerbFM and vote right now. Michigan's in the lead 5-0. They came out of the gate with a 3-run home run and a 2-run shot. To take a 5-0 lead. So if any Purdue fans are out there, tune in to vote now on Twitter. So it's close to the top of the hour, 8 o'clock. Let's talk about other stuff going on. Our good friend Dan Tortora was down in Jacksonville this past week with that. We don't talk about that game here in Baltimore. I just can't believe the Ravens just 9-point lead. And I'm sorry, but if you are the Ravens, Adam, okay, you got the best freaking field goal kicker in Justin Tucker, who owns Royal Farms Coffee up here. Okay, there's a local coffee shop up here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they rushed him on the field and told him, "Go ahead and kick a 67-yard field." But they have one timeout left. Would you take a timeout and let him calm down a little bit? Let him collect his thoughts, because I felt like he was rushed out there and it was like 2 seconds, like boop, and he almost made it. It came up short, like I want to say 3-4 yards short off the from the goalpost. But I was like, wait a minute, you got an extra timeout. Why are you doing that?
I would have used it, Chris. I mean, it's like I still can't believe that outcome. I mean, it was crazy. And go check out go to YouTube and our good friend Dan Tortora had an interview with the AAC commissioner, and also the coaches from Tulane University and the University of Central Florida.
And we're going to be spotlighting in the 8:00 hour. You know, we got
the AAC championship game between Tulane and UCF. So stick around.
I think it's funny if Central Florida wins, they go to the Big 12 with a new title.
True. That is absolutely true, Chris. Yeah, because
the funny thing is now Tulane is the champion, you know, during the championship game. And I'm like, Tulane, the team that basically like a couple of years ago was 0-11.
Yeah.
You know, Tulane. And their coach, who just literally just got hired by Georgia Tech, you know, Willie Freeze, who's now going to be Georgia Tech head coach after the season's over. So I guess he wants to coach his team to the bowl game and, you know, all that stuff. But it's crazy, you know. So, but it's very interesting going on here. So, good, so go to his YouTube page. Let me go to his YouTube page real quick and put it in there for you folks. Yeah, that's he is the mayor of Syracuse, like you, Adam, the mayor of Portland. Yeah, I'm not a mayor of anything. I'm not mayor of Flavortown. That's Guy Freddy's job. Yeah, yeah. I wish I wasn't. Yeah, the guy. But it's a very Dan Tortora does a fantastic job, and I don't know where he's going this week. For the he normally covers the the AAC. I don't know if he's going down to New Orleans. Because that's going to be very interesting. Let me see here. Let me bring up his. This is his YouTube page, folks. Pretty cool YouTube page that he does here. Here's his website, folks. If you want to go on and watch his programs, he has great stuff. He talked to the commissioner. He did do a wrap up from the Syracuse, the Jaguar game on Saturday. With the Ravens losing to Jacksonville. Does a lot of good talk Syracuse football. I was up there a couple of weeks ago to see firsthand what he does up in Syracuse, covering Syracuse sports, and he does a great job with all these players, and they know him by name, and he hangs out with them and talks to them, and he's a fantastic guy. So hopefully we'll find out. Maybe next week we'll get him on and see what he thinks about Syracuse and the bowl game, and what do you think about the AAC with coaches leaving? The Tulsa coach was let go. You can't forget what Wisconsin just did, picking up Luke Fickell, from Cincinnati, and that's a big, What is Cincinnati going to look like in the Big 12 with no, Luke Fickell around?
That's going to be interesting. I mean, it's like,
are they going to go back to the dark ages before Brian Kelly showed up, and then before Tommy Tuberville took over?
Oh, it's going to be interesting next year, Chris. I mean, with UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, and BYU going to the Big 12. So
go to his page. You can watch his interview with the coach of the commissioner, of the AAC, or you just want to call it American. I don't say AAC. That sounds like one of those one of those job sites. Yeah. So you can go to his website and watch his interviews. Let's bring in this gentleman, a frequent guest on our program. His first game, Adam, against first game as interim coach of New Hampshire was against Holy Cross.
Yes, it was, Chris.
Yeah.
Yep, and he got a huge test on Saturday.
And this year he became CAA Coach of the Year. So fantastic to him. Let's bring in the coach of UNH, Coach Santos, with us. Coach, first of all, congratulations on being Coach of the Year, sir. That's a great achievement, taking over this time last year, Coach Mack.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you guys having me again. It was a great year. Just really excited for the progress that our young men made from losing 8 games in a row last year to all the hardship and adversity we went through. And obviously all these guys came in, they were recruited by Coach McDonald, and just to have the faith in myself and our coaching staff to stay and it's just the new way it is with the transfer portal and everything. It would have been easier for a lot of these guys to kind of take off, and they decided to stay home and go the hard road and rebuild this from the ground back up. And yeah, we just kept finding a way to keep getting better and better as the season went along. And we've had some pretty epic, last month of the season. So we got to keep it rolling.
Yeah. So do you remember your first game when you coached against Holy Cross? Do you remember that game? That was. Do you still remember anything about that game? Because it was pretty funny when I was doing some research. That was your first game as interim coach, and I'm like, oh, how's things?
Yeah, I mean, what do you want? I remember everything about it. That's usually what happens. I remember vividly all the losses, not necessarily what happens in the good things. So, that was a tough game, and I mean, I think. You look at how well coached they are. I think Bob Chesney is one of the best coaches in the country at any level. And we went in there and, we turned the ball over too much. And, we were up late in that game, had an opportunity to win it. We were backed up. Our left guard fell down and their will linebacker kind of blitzed the B gap and hit our running back and fumbled the ball right there. And then they ended up recovering it for a touchdown for the game winner with a couple minutes left to go. So, that was a really tough way to lose it. But ultimately I think that's why, you play the game every single week. And, when you have those heartbreaking losses, there's so many teachable moments in there that we could pull from, and we got better as that season went along as well.
Yeah. So you're going to take on a different squad who's basically 11-0 coming into this. They went through the Patriot League and smacked everybody around, and 11-0, and that's a totally different team. What you saw that you didn't see when you for your first game. So what do you see on Holy Cross that might give you a problem on Saturday?
Oh, no question. I mean, I don't think they don't have a weakness. I think they're really disciplined and well coached in all three phases. As I mentioned, Bob Chesney's as good as there is. We know their defensive coordinator, Scott James, extremely well. I worked with him for 3 years. He was at New Hampshire for 6 or 7. And then Drew Kanan, their special teams coordinator, is an absolute wizard in what he does and multiple looks. They blocked 4 or 5 punts this year. They blocked a bunch of kicks. They're very multiple in what they do on the team side of it. So they're disciplined. They play hard. They play with an edge. They have a dynamic quarterback who's a dual threat. That's as good as anybody in the country. They run around and they're extremely physical on the defensive side of the ball. They tackle well. They create turnovers. So, yeah, for us, it's an opportunity to go in against a very, very tough opponent, a top 10 opponent in the country, and go down there and find a way to get a win. And it's just, I always look at the positives and not the hard things that we have to overcome. And for us, it's an opportunity to, go there and prove that, we have the opportunity to be a team that can beat them.
Adam, you got a question?
Yeah, first off, from one Grand Stater to another, congratulations on the co-CAA championship, coach of the year, and also your first round win on last Saturday versus Fordham. And like Chris was talking about, you guys have to go to Holy Cross where they are an undefeated team, a top 8 national seed. So, and you guys have a heck of a running back who I believe set a record last Saturday against Fordham. So give us some keys on how you can give the Holy Cross Crusaders their first loss of the year and advance to the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs.
I think first and foremost, we got to take care of the football. As I mentioned, they do a great job turning it over. So we have to play clean, make sure that we secure it. They tackle well, and their first, second guys in always wrap the ball, and then the other guys are trying to get it out. So secure the football first. I think, as you mentioned, fortunate for us, we have Dylan Lobby, and he's as dynamic as there is in the country. So we need to find creative ways to get him the ball in space out of the backfield, do some different things with him. I think we need to establish a ground game too, independent of Dylan, so we can make sure we can control the clock, because I think they have a very prolific offense. So work to limit their possessions. And then on the other side of the ball, we have to tackle extremely well. They do such a good job of running the quarterback Q power, Q gap scheme. So we need to make sure that we kind of put a net around Saluka. And then they have 3 or 4 wideouts that can absolutely, run and catch on the perimeter as well. So, we know they have dynamic skill, and I think they do a great job of marrying up their top play actions with their top run concepts. So I think the back end guys have to be extremely disciplined in what they're doing and just making sure they understand kind of what the offensive intent and game plan is going to be. So yeah, it's going to be a great ball game, and I think it's exciting for everybody in New England. I know a lot of people are going to tune into it. I'm sure we'll get close to a sold out crowd. We've been urging all the UNH fans. We have a huge contingent in the Boston and the Mass area, so hopefully we turn into a mini UNH home game and it can be a spirited contest.
Yeah. Just talking about last week against Fordham, it looked like you guys were going back and forth. It was one of those classic college games. It's like you score like against that Florida game last Friday night. Like you score, they score, you score, they score, and then by the time you had enough firepower to knock them out. Is that one of those games that you didn't want to get into a track meet because knowing that maybe Holy Cross might do that again this week? It might be another track meet.
Yeah, last week it was one of those games where they were so prolific on offense that, we equated it to a heavyweight boxing match. And we're saying, okay, there's 12 rounds, so each possession's like a round. And for our defense, we needed to win basically 7 out of the 12 rounds. And we felt like if we could hold them to 35 points, that was a win. Which is usually counterintuitive. For us, our goal is 3 touchdowns or less. But we felt like they were so good and we gave them so much respect. And we basically did that. We went for it on 4th down late in the first half, didn't get it, gave them a short field. They scored. And then they scored one late after we had a silly 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty. We kind of gave them a cheap one late. So basically held them to what we thought. And then offensively, it was one of those things where, if they were going to score, we wanted to be the reason on offense. And I talked to Max Brosmer all week playing, hey, you're playing an All-American quarterback. Like you're pretty darn good yourself. Like step up, be the reason, work to outplay him. And he did. And, Max Brosmer threw for more yards than Tim Demeret. That was probably the first time all year that the opposing quarterback had thrown for more yards than Tim had thrown. So that was a huge, huge thing as well. And then obviously Dylan Lobby was a man amongst boys there. So yeah, it was a track meet last week. I would assume, I don't anticipate the flow of the game being the same way this week, but you just never know how it's going to be.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why you guys play the games. You practice, you get ready for it, and you don't know what, it could be a defensive struggle.
There's going to be weather. It's supposed to rain, and it looks like winds of 15 and then gusts of 35. So, when you have a good old-fashioned, winter New England mix like that, anything can happen. It might be impossible to throw it. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the flow of the game plays out.
Yeah. Has Coach Mack give you a call and see how you're doing? And
Coach Mack's he's the best. He comes by once a week, checks in.
That's good.
Yeah, he's always there. I think he watches more film than any of the coaches, to be honest. So we have an online system that you can kind of track, and we track our student athletes and how much they're watching on their own and stuff like that. Coach Mack logs the most hours out of anybody, so he's still keeping tabs on us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you really retired there, Coach Mack. Sure you did. He just didn't want to coach anymore.
He can't get enough.
Yeah, he's such a good friend of the show. I texted him with his birthday, and I said, "Happy birthday!" And he goes, "Thanks, dude. Appreciate that." I feel like he's one of those guys that, for me in the broadcasting world, to get to know a coach real well, and he was the first one I got a chance to get to know well, because a lot of these coaches, you're not intimidating, but some of them are very intimidating, people.
Well, he can be, but I think if he opened up to you, that means he really likes you.
Yeah, because he realized I'm from Long Island, so he knows I'm a New Yorker. And,
there you go.
And he's like, oh, I can tell you're a Met fan, and that's what him and I were talking all the time. And it's sad that I couldn't get up there for a game, but 13 hours on a bus for me,
no.
Having 9 hours to Indianapolis this week is not a great idea, but hey, we're gonna go.
Sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys win, do you guys go back to? Do you have a home playoff game, or you keep going on because you're not the higher seed?
It would be the higher seed. So if South Dakota State wins, we would go there. If Delaware beats them, I believe we would host Delaware.
Oh wow, that might be a very interesting game.
Right now we're worried about one thing and one thing only. It's the Holy Cross Crusaders, so we can't get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, you can't look at the scoreboard going.
No, it's win or go home. It's survive and advance. That's all it is right now. It's find a way to have one more point than your opponent every single week. We're in the Sweet 16. We got to get to the Elite 8, and then we'll regroup from there.
Yeah, I forgot. Adam, did you ask the questions to the coach? Because I don't know if you did. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did, and actually, I'm getting rain here in the mountains of North Carolina now, so I believe all this rain I'm getting is coming your way, Coach. So,
oh boy,
you could be in a rain/snow situation on Saturday in Worcester. So, your running back could get a lot of work on.
Yeah, we might have to feed him the rock. We're probably going to do that anyways, but we'll see how it plays out.
That's cool. Well, your game is 12 noon on Saturday. You can watch it probably on ESPN Plus.
Yep, that's right.
On ESPN Plus. So, yeah. Well, I'm traveling out to Indianapolis. I'm not going to plug it into my phone in the car because I don't wreck the rental car. That's not a good idea. Can't get that security deposit back. That's not a smart thing to do.
Definitely not.
No, but I wish you the best. I hope everything goes well. Hopefully, you guys could keep this thing moving on and represent the CAA and keep going for another week.
No question. It's that's the goal, and I appreciate you guys having me. Look forward to catching up soon, and yeah, we're excited for this incredible opportunity to go be great one more time. So let's have at it.
All right, go Wildcats and
go Wildcats. Represent the state of New Hampshire.
You got it, guys. All right, take care now.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye now. Bye. All right, Coach Santos, our good friend here on the program. We love the folks from New Hampshire. It's like a home away from home with Adams from that area, and me knowing Coach Mack for a very long time, and now Coach Ricky, knowing him for when he was an interim coach, and and it's just a heck of a
New Hampshire are really nice, Chris. New Hampshire is a nice state to go visit. You have the White Mountains. You can go see all the fall colors. There's lots of good hiking trails. So New Hampshire, for those of you who have never gone to New Hampshire, you should go, except in the wintertime, because if you like snow, then it's the place for you. And if you don't, stay away until about May.
Exactly. Well, let's switch the page, turn the page here from Division II or SBS school to the American Conference. A big game down in New Orleans this weekend. Besides LSU going to Georgia, there's a game down in New Orleans. Tulane taking on Central Florida. Let's bring in Jerry Smith, who is the beat writer for the folks down there in Tulane for the New Orleans Advocate. So let's bring in Jerry. Hi, Jerry. How you doing?
Doing good. It's pronounced Gary. It's spelled Gary? Like that though. So nope. I totally understand where you're coming from.
Hey, I'm from up here. I'm thinking I had a neighbor. First name was Jerry, so I'm thinking, but he spelled it with a G. So I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. But anyway, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Big game in the city of New Orleans. The Saints are not doing so well, so let's bring in Tulane to make it a great weekend for football in New Orleans. So home game, first time hosting a championship game. How excited is the university?
Really excited. Tulane's never had an experience like this at all. Haven't had an undefeated season in 1998, long before championship games were around in this league. But it's just a tremendous deal. It's a team that went 2-10 last year. That wasn't an accurate reflection of them. They were evacuated for the first month of the year for a hurricane. They'd gone to bowl games the 3 previous years, but this is still a tremendous jump from going 6-6, which is basically what Tulane had been doing. And the other good thing is, look, Sunday it all broke that Willie Fritz might be going to Georgia Tech, and that could have been a huge distraction for this team. But it was announced today that Georgia Tech's going with their interim coach Brent Key. They've just named him full-time coach, so that's a done deal now. And I think the deal breaker with Willie Fritz is he refused to leave before the conference championship game, and he wanted Georgia Tech to wait before he would agree to anything, and apparently they weren't willing to wait. So that distraction is gone now. Willie Fritz is going to be the Tulane coach next year.
Yeah. Well, that's sad with these universities. You saw with Fickle, going to Wisconsin. Now he can't coach his team in the bowl game.
Right.
I think they need to make a rule that you can't talk to any coaches if they're still in the postseason, like a bowl game or something. It should be off limits until after they lose their bowl game, and then you could talk to them. Because I feel like it's a distraction for kids and recruits, because you have recruits going to go, wait a minute, Coach Freeze is going to. Chris is going to go to Atlanta. What the heck is going on here? It's like, come on.
And it could have been even worse for Cincinnati because Tulane beat them 27-24 on Friday. If Cincinnati wins that game, or if UCF had lost to South Florida on Saturday and UCF was losing with 30 seconds left, Cincinnati would have backed into the championship game. And then that really could have been a mess. I don't know if they would have delayed it by a week or what would have happened, but yeah, it's not a good look.
Right. I think that, like I said, I think they should make a rule for all these 82 teams in the college football on these bowl games. You can't touch them. Can't talk to them. Yeah, talk to the teams that they need. Coaches like Maryland's, in the bowl game, but some other teams. But don't talk to teams that are going to be in bowl games because that's going to ruin it.
Yeah, that's the way the NFL does it.
I know it's ridiculous. But Adam, do you have a question?
Talk to us about what it's been like down there in the city of New Orleans regarding Tulane football. You guys used to play in the Superdome, but now you guys play in an on-campus stadium. I know it's probably going to be a lot of. I'm assuming the game is sold out on Saturday. So, and you guys lost to Central Florida a few weeks ago, only by a touchdown. So, we have video here on the screen. So, what's it gonna? Do you guys think you can win on Saturday against Central Florida and be the champions of the American Athletic Conference?
That's been the goal for the players all year. It's funny, their senior linebacker Nick Anderson, one of the team leaders, he was asked what was going to happen this year in his first preseason media conference, and he said that Tulane was going to break the internet because Tulane was going to win the league. Well, this is a team coming off a 2-10 season last year that had never really been that close to even making the conference championship game in 6 years under Willie Fritz. And it was like, man, you may need to calm down a little bit. And it turned out he was totally on point. It was a team that returned a ton of seniors with a ton of experience over the past few years with productive experience. And again, last year was just a debacle because of all the hurricane distractions and everything else. So they knew what they had, and they've really done. Yeah, they think they can win. They're actually favored to win. The odds makers have them as a 3-point favorite. They really played probably their worst game of the year against UCF the first time, which doesn't guarantee they'll play better this time. But UCF ran for 351 yards against Tulane. Tulane didn't give up more than 200 rushing yards in any other game. Tulane had 8 penalties for 67 yards. That was the most penalties and penalty yards Tulane's had in any game. Dropped about 8 passes, including an easy touchdown that would have gotten them within, I think, 3 points at one point late in the third quarter. So they have a lot of things that they feel like that if they fix that they'll win this game, and that's certainly the goal. They're not hosting the championship game for the first time with the intent of just going out and losing it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Talk about this game coming up on Saturday. If Tulane beats Central Florida, who is going to be off to the Big 12 next year, this might be the Tulane's biggest bowl game since back in the 60s when they were very, very.
I mean, Tulane hadn't been to a major bowl game in I think 83 years. This is for the Cotton Bowl. The winner of the UCF Tulane game will be playing in the Cotton Bowl. It's a dream scenario for Tulane. I've seen some projections where Tulane could be playing Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. That's just unimaginable considering where Tulane has been in recent years. It's a huge deal. And this game sold out. It's been a slow build this year in terms of the fans. The UCF game 3 weeks ago, which was Tulane was ranked and undefeated in the conference, did not sell out. It was about 3,000 short of selling out in a 30,000 seat stadium. And it was only that close because UCF brought a ton of fans from Orlando. This is a totally different situation. This game sold out in about 24 hours after the tickets were made available. And there'll be a much smaller contingent of UCF fans. It'll be almost all Tulane fans. Yeah, it's hard. There was no reason for generations. Tulane didn't give their fans a reason to care anymore. And honestly, a lot of the fans died off of old age. It's a university that doesn't have very many local students. Most of the students don't stay in New Orleans after they graduate. And so the fan base just went away. That you have to have more than one big year, but the sign that they were able to sell this game out so quickly is an indication of what Willie Fritz has done this year and turning that whole image around.
Yeah, hopefully this is will keep on going, and Tulane can be one of those teams in like Cincinnati. 5 years from now we'll be like, oh, remember when they were like nobody, and
Right.
they came out of the woodwork and they won the American Conference, and they go to the Cotton Bowl, and yes, you probably get behind door number one, you get Alabama. That's it's like that's a good. Hey, you won the American Conference. Here you go. Take on Alabama or Ohio State or somebody, and you're like, oh god,
And look, this has been no fluke this year. I mean, Tulane. We saw this third week of the year. Tulane went to Kansas State and won that game, and it was a close game all the way. But Tulane looked like the better team that day against Kansas State. And now nobody had any idea what Kansas State was going to do this year. They were a good team, but nobody saw what was coming. Kansas State's playing for the Big 12 championship, can try to mess up TCU's season. And Tulane went into that stadium and beat them. Then in Tulane's conference opener, Tulane went to Houston, which has just been an absolute house of horrors for Willie Fritz. They've just been blown out every time they've played there. Their starting quarterback, Michael Pratt, was out with an injury. Their backup quarterback went out with a season-ending injury on the very first series, and Tulane won that game with their third-string quarterback getting a touchdown in overtime to win the game. All those were stuff that just didn't happen for this program in the past, and they showed right away that this was just a completely different team from what we've seen from Tulane in the past.
Exactly. Well, I hope you guys have good weather on Saturday. I know right now you're dealing with the storms coming through with the hurricane, the tornadoes and all that stuff. Hope everybody's safe there in Louisiana, and hopefully this weather will be. I know it might be a little cold this weekend, but it should be better than what today it looks like.
I just checked the forecast. It's 65 degrees to 75 degrees range on Saturday with an outside chance for thunderstorms, but it should be much better. This whole system that's coming through should be gone by Saturday, which obviously you don't want to host a championship game for the first time ever and have miserable weather for it.
I should take a detour as they go into Indianapolis. Let's go down to New Orleans. A little bit warm weather. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you have a great Saturday, and hopefully we will see Tulane in the Cotton Bowl, and that'll be cool.
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. That's Jerry Smith, right? Is that Jerry or is it?
Yeah.
Gary Smith from Tulane, the beat writer for the New Orleans Advocate down there in beautiful New Orleans. I want to watch CSI in New Orleans right now.
Yeah. New Orleans does have some really great food, Chris. If you like Cajun cooking,
I would like to get there one day just to see what this.
I want to go to the French Quarter. I want to go get me some authentic Cajun seafood and
some Cajun gumbo. Get some.
Yeah,
because that's good stuff. I know this gentleman, Jeff Shannon. He might be down there getting some good gumbo on Saturday. I don't know if he's making a trip down there Saturday. You going to get some good gumbo down there on Saturday if you're making a trip?
Hey, fellas. No, unfortunately, I can't make the trip because we have a bunch of other things going on over the weekend. But we'll be watching very intently from here in Orlando, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, this game could have been in your neck of the woods if you didn't lose to Navy, right?
That's true.
If Navy didn't come in there and spank you, it would have been like a different story. You guys would have been in nice Florida weather, and and that place down there at your stadium would have been packed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a close game, but I'll tell you that the Navy game, 17-14 was the final, but I think the Navy game really kind of was a bit of a galvanizing force for this team. Although, the last 2 weeks we've seen some concerns pop up for UCF. Obviously the Navy game, Navy just there's really no other way we could describe it. Navy just kind of Navied us. They run that triple option offense where they just burn a lot of clock. They took the opening kickoff. They burned 9 minutes off the clock to start, got 7 points. And then, they just live from playing ahead. And, I think UCF kind of, you could sense some sort of panic creep in, especially in the second half. And Navy, they're a well-coached, well-disciplined team, and they took care, and they did what they seem to always do to 2 or 3 teams every year, which is completely, wreck their plans. Last week against South Florida, of course, big rivalry game against a 1-10 team, but UCF, had tremendous lead, a 28-point lead that they actually blew and needed to win the game on a late drive on a spectacular touchdown catch by Alec Holler with 20 seconds to go. But it's a rivalry game, and you just don't know. You may as well, like they always say, throw the records out. I mean, rivalry games are rivalry games. They're kind of their own thing. So there are some. I think that there are some concerns coming into this championship game with Tulane, and and again, just like you mentioned with Jerry earlier, UCF won the previous matchup in New Orleans. But that was another game where UCF had a big lead and then it ended up being close in the fourth quarter. So we don't know what we really don't know what we're going to get here. I think we're going to get a much more, a Tulane team that, thinks that they should have had us because they feel like they kind of blew the game in the first quarter, really, and dug themselves a hole that they couldn't dig themselves out of.
Yeah, Jeff, I was just thinking you were talking about rivalry games, and I was reading that this game against South Florida is not going to be. They're not going to do another one until 6 years from now. And I'm like,
well, actually, we don't know when we're.
Yeah.
That's the earliest, if it ever happens, that it could happen.
Yeah, why couldn't they fix this? Because you see Florida State and Florida played each other, no matter if they're in two different conferences. I know Miami was in the Big East before they came to the ACC, and they continued doing it with Florida State. Why can't they just do the same thing and fix the schedule every year and go, okay, South Florida, you're going to be playing, Central Florida, and this is one of those non-conference games on Thanksgiving weekend.
Well, there's a few reasons why. The reason why they can't do it, sooner rather than later is because, as you guys mentioned, we're going into the Big 12 next year. They're going to play 9 conference games. 3 of them, so you're going to play 3 non-conference games. The other thing is South Florida already has their schedule all booked up for the next 6 years. So even if we wanted to get the series going again, they're already booked up with a bunch of big opponents, especially at home. The other thing is, those rivalries in state that you mentioned between Florida State, Florida, Miami, those are Power 5 schools. And, and this is one of the things, that I've talked about that's kind of a shame about going, into a Power 5 conference with, without South Florida. Remember they were in the American used to be the old Big East, and they were in it, and we tried to get into it, and we did. And then when that happens, the Big East becomes the American and loses its automatic power conference tag. It doesn't, the only school that it helps if UCF plays South Florida is South Florida. UCF basically can't win because even if you do win, you were supposed to. You're a Power 5 school. You're supposed to beat a Group of 5 school. If you lose, well, that hurts more than even winning does. And UCF doesn't, at least from my sense, kind of doesn't feel that, it would benefit them, right now to play South Florida. Now, I tend to disagree. I think that it's a good rivalry and it can be a fun rivalry, but
they could play in a bowl game. I don't want to interrupt you, but they could play in a bowl game. I know Florida State.
They could play in a bowl game. But South Florida's got a lot of problems with their program. I mean, let's face it, they're 1-11. They've won 3 games the last 3 seasons, and it seems like infrastructure wise, they're finally starting to get their program sort of under control. They're trying to build a non-campus stadium so that they don't have to play at Raymond James in front of 70,000 empty red seats anymore. But they've kind of botched their opportunity to take advantage of what they had when they entered the Big East, all that time ago, and UCF didn't. And now UCF has leapfrogged them, and it's sort of sprung their administration into action.
And you got a question for Jeff?
I'm very familiar with the war on I-4, and I know how popular the rivalry is between UCF and USF, and in all sports, softball and baseball, football, men's basketball. And it's a shame that the war on I-4 isn't going to continue in football because it should. It's called. But you guys have a heck of a quarterback. at UCF this year was really good. So tell us how Central Florida can go into New Orleans and spoil Tulane having the championship game being played in New Orleans.
Well, the one good thing going for UCF is we've already done it once, and if you can do it once, you can do it again. The last game between these two schools in New Orleans, and you see the highlights of it right now. One of the things that UCF was able to do was run the ball very effectively against Tulane. Tulane has been very good on defense, but their one weak spot defensively is against the run. They're 74th in FBS against the run. They allow about 155 yards per game. Against the pass, they're very good, 182 yards a game only against the pass. That's 13th in the country. But UCF and Gus Malzahn, they like to run the football. They're the number 7 rushing offense in the country. UCF runs for 244 yards a game. And that was the key to the victory in New Orleans because UCF was able to run for 336 yards, 6.2 yards per carry, and they only had to pass for 132. Now, the key to that was they were able to jump out in front early, and John Rice Plumlee, who UCF has played 2 quarterbacks this year. Plumlee's was named the starter at the start of the year. He beat out Mikey Keene, who spelled Dylan Gabriel last year for much of the year, helped lead us to the bowl game win over Florida. But, Plumlee's a dual threat guy, but he is a little bit, I'd say he's 50, 60 run, 40 pass, if you will. And against Tulane, he ran for 176 yards on 18 carries and scored twice, including a 67-yarder. And that actually set a new school record for rushing yards by a quarterback. And actually, in fact, he broke the old school record for rushing yards in a single game by a quarterback in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Jeez.
With his first 2 long runs. So that tells you that UCF was able to attack them on the ground, and that's how we were able to build up that lead. Now, Tulane's a good team. They were able to come back, and Michael Pratt had an excellent game against UCF. I thought once he settled in, 23 of 39 for 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tyjae Spears also, he actually attacked UCF's defense pretty well early. He had a 70-yard run early in the game, but then UCF held him to 60 yards the rest of the night. But he was pretty good overall. Really, it was Pratt, making plays, especially in the second half, that brought Tulane back into the game. So, but the key was UCF was able to just be patient and take advantage of Tulane's weakness, which is rush defense. Now, as you guys know, it's always a little bit different when you play an opponent a second time. So what does Gus Malzahn have in the bag this time around that maybe Tulane hasn't seen yet? The other thing that happened too that we got to keep an eye on is John Rice Plumlee got hurt in the game against South Florida last Saturday. He tweaked his hamstring on one of his touchdown runs early in the game. So he had to leave, and Mikey Keene had to come back in, and UCF's offense struggled. There were a couple of turnovers, actually 3 turnovers that helped USF get back in the game. And, that was a real, and that really changed the complexion of the game, I thought. And, but again, Mikey Keene just kind of, if Plumlee can't go, and we think he will, but, for some reason he aggravates one of his multiple injuries that he's been dealing with throughout the year. You can hand the ball to Mikey Keene, you're going to be in the game. And I think that's one of the advantages that Gus Malzahn has with UCF and their current quarterback situation is at least we have some depth at that position. Where, last year we really didn't. We had to hand the keys over to a true freshman.
Yeah. Now talk to us about Gus Malzahn. He came from Auburn, and now he's at Central Florida. So, what have you liked about Coach Malzahn at Central Florida?
I think that he's a natural fit for what UCF wants their program to be. Of course, he came over from, like you mentioned, he came over from Auburn, and prior to that, he was a head coach at Arkansas State for 1 year. Before that, he was an offensive coordinator at Auburn. He's familiar with recruiting the South. He understands that. At UCF, here's the other thing that I think is great about it, in terms of his position is, UCF is a place where coaches can just come coach. It's a young school with a young fan base. You don't have it's not like an Auburn or an Alabama where you have a lot of old established boosters who like to throw their weight and their money around, and exert influence on the head coach. At UCF, you come in and you can coach and you can recruit and you can run the system that you want and that you want to run, and UCF fans, have expectations. We want to win. We want to win 10 games a year. We want to compete for the conference championship, want to possibly challenge for a New Year's Six bowl bid as well. And it looks like the winner of this game will get that New Year's Six bowl bid based on tonight's college football playoff rankings. But, Gus, it's interesting. I have his book that he wrote about the no huddle offense. And, he wrote that when he was a high school coach in Arkansas, and set all kinds of records, offensive records. In fact, one of his quarterbacks at one of his high schools was Rhett Lashley, who's now the head coach at SMU. And I feel like the teacher in Gus never really left him. And at a place like UCF, he has the latitude in order to do that, in order to be a teacher and really teach the game to his players, and they respond to that. He's helped to unify a team that I think was a little divided at the end of the Josh Heupel era in terms of pitting the offense against the defense. Guys play for each other, and we've seen that in several occasions this year. So, and I think that's been, a real shot in the arm for UCF in terms of, where the direction of the program is going as we finish our run in the American and get ready to head to the Big 12.
All right, Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. Enjoy your week down. Enjoy the game from Orlando. Hopefully you guys can pull out a big win and bring that Big 12 trophy, the American trophy back home before you go to the Big 12. And, good luck this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me on. I think it's going to be a tough one, but it's going to be close. It's going to be much closer than people think. We got a good Tulane team on our hands, and we'll see. Can't do much better than deciding it on the field, can we?
Exactly. Nope. All right, Jeff. Thank you so much.
All right, fellas. Have a good one. Thanks for having me. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye. All right, that's Jeff Shannon from Black and Gold Barnet, who are part of the SB Nation for Central Florida. Let's finish up the show here. We're going to talk a little Michigan football. And before we do that, I talked to this gentleman. This guy is probably well known here in the state of Maryland because his brother is the coach of the Baltimore Ravens. But some guy named Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, Harbs. Yeah, they call John down here Harbs. I guess they call him Harbs too, probably. Yeah. So I had a chance to speak to Coach Jim on Sunday, and I asked him about, what's this mean going back there 2 straight years in a row to Indianapolis for a championship. And then we'll bring in Steve Hornecki in a minute from the Toledo Blade, who covers the Wolverines after this interview.
And now we'll take our next question from Christopher Heidel. Christopher, your line is now open.
Hi, Coach. This is Chris Heidel from Hermiston Radio in Baltimore. Congratulations on making it back to Indianapolis in the 2nd year on the road. What does that mean for you as a coach, making your team back there, back at Indy? And now this time around, you guys have a chance to be in this college football playoff to be maybe a better seed.
What it means is it's just a great thrill of winning and a great thrill of being able to go for a championship. There's a time to live, there's a time to die, but there's never a time to reject the moment. And that our players get to go through that, that they get the benefit of being in that moment and having that opportunity. That's what means so much. Also that, my wife, my kids, the players I coach, the families of the players that we coach, their sisters, their brothers, their parents, their grandparents, that everybody, gets to have the excitement of going for a championship and to be a champion. There's few accolades better in the United States of America. And so what it means to me personally is that, my wife, my sons, my daughters, my brothers, my sisters, my parents, our players, their parents, sisters, brothers, families get to go through that same pursuit of excellence and see that in their sons and brothers and sisters and friends.
That was a heck of a interview there with Jim Harbaugh, from Michigan. Let's bring in the coach. Let's bring in Steve Kornecki, who covers the Wolverines for the Toledo Blade. So, hey, Steve, how you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you today?
Not bad.
Tonight, I should say.
Yeah, I talked to Coach. Yeah, I talked to Coach. I talked to Coach Jim on Sunday, and he was very, excited going there for a second year on the road to Indianapolis. And I think I got him to do more than a couple minutes because I know you guys get a chance to interview him each week. He only gives you 2 seconds and then move on.
Yeah. You know what? He's gotten so good the last couple of years. And in fact, I wrote a column about that last week. He's having so much fun, and he was having no fun. Like in 2015, he seemed like he was enjoying it, and he was his first year here, and then when Michigan lost to Ohio State in that double overtime controversial game in 2016, it seemed like he kind of changed after that. I don't know if it was football related or what it might have been related to, but he just was having no fun. I mean, I always had good luck with him because I covered Jim when he played, and I know his dad and his mom and his brother John, and so I didn't have a problem with him, but he just didn't. We got along great, but he didn't seem to be having fun with the vast majority of the media. In the last 2 years, he has, and so I saw his dad after the Illinois game 2 weeks ago, and I said, Jack, I want to run something by you. I said, I think that Jim is kind of channeling his inner Jack, that he's acting like you. He's really enjoying things. And what do you think about that? And he said, it's kind of interesting because that's what his mother told me recently, that she thinks the same thing. And so it's really been great to see, that Jim is finally comfortable being back home in every way and just having the time of his life. And his dad said that last year, Aiden Hutchinson and the seniors came in and told him that, we're going to take care of everything downstairs, meaning the locker room, because the offices at Schembechler Hall are on the second floor and the locker room's on the ground floor. And he said Jim never enjoyed a year more, and that's continued this year. And that, and so I talked to his mother. I said, hey, Jack said, that you're seeing a lot of Jim a lot of Jack in Jim. And she said, absolutely. And she just went on and on about how happy she is about that. So, and I think that's big. One of maybe the biggest reason why this team has had so much success. They won 24 games in the last 2 years, and no team in program history, no 2 back-to-back teams had ever done that. And, obviously that ties into, back in the day, they were playing 10 or 11 games in the season, and there weren't conference championship games, and there weren't, college football playoffs. Most of the years I covered football, there were 11 games and a bowl game. 12 games was it, so you couldn't err if you're going to get 12 wins. But, it's just been really fun to see. These players are a lot of fun. I think J.J. McCarthy, I think, Jim has said he reminds me of me, when I played, and he said he's better. So, and guys like, Blake Corum, and, I could just keep going on and on around this team, are just really enjoyable young men, and Donovan Edwards and so many of these guys, Ronnie Bell, just fun guys, and they're very tight knit. Most of the players on this team have a very strong faith in God that they share publicly, and they really, really love each other. I mean, when Jim was coming on the stage at Ohio, not the stage, but where they get interviewed at Ohio Stadium, he was coming on and Donovan was coming off, and I was standing right next to him, and Donovan hugged Jim and he said, "I love you, Coach," and Jim said, "I love you too, Dono," and they were slapping on the back, and this is a team that genuinely loves each other, and that takes you a long ways when things are going bad, and it takes you even farther when things are going good.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I feel like ever since that horrible game against Michigan State, and with the fight in the tunnel, I feel like there's been a new excitement for Michigan.
That was really unfortunate because that took away from that win, and it was painful for Jamon and excuse me, I'm not being able to remember the second player's name, which is bad, but I feel bad that those guys were hurt, and it was just a real bad thing, just there's no two ways around it. Really bad, it just, it kind of made everybody feel kind of horrible for a week or two, and then finally that was gone, and they're fine now. Those guys are fine. So Jaden McBurrows is the other player.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just there. I was there for the Maryland game there at Michigan, and I totally understand why everybody's down in one tunnel, but I guess they got to change that around now, right?
You know what's interesting?
Yeah.
Michigan State, the players go up one tunnel. Notre Dame, the players go up one tunnel. There's a whole lot of places where people go up one tunnel. They've been going up that one tunnel since 1927 without any problems. I think the people are the problem. I don't think the tunnels are the problem.
Right. Okay. Adam, you had a question for
me? First of all, Steve, I'll give you guys a little teaser. I have the Wolverines and the Georgia Bulldogs meeting in LA for the national championship game in January. I have been so impressed with quarterback J.J. McCarthy, and after what Michigan did to Ohio State last Saturday, and Blake Corum is actually nominated for the Doak Walker Award this year. So can Blake Corum win the Doak Walker Award? He's up against some really good talent, a running back from Illinois and Bijan Robinson, running back from Texas. Do you think he can win the Doak Walker Award?
I think he can. I don't know if he will. I mean, if I had a vote, and at one time I did vote for the Doak Walker, I would vote for him because he's gotten the tough yards in every game. He was according to guys who won the Heisman Trophy, like RG3 and Barry Sanders, he's the guy that they're supporting for the Heisman, and a great leader, and comes up big and at the biggest times, and was explosive. And I understand that Texas has Bijan is a pretty great running back, and I think he's the highest rated, in terms of where he's going to go in the draft, and he's got great stats. But I mean, that conference is not a very good defensive conference, and not to take anything away from him, he's a great back. But I just, if I had a vote, I would vote for Blake. And the unfortunate thing is, if you only have 2 snaps where you get the ball against Ohio State, that's the showcase game, and nobody gets to see you. And we've seen how important that Ohio State game is. I mean, it took Aiden Hutchinson from probably about 5th in the field to 2nd last year in the Heisman voting.
Mm-hmm.
It was the tiebreaker between, I always believe, between Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning back in 1997. And Desmond Howard had the great game against Ohio State, but he was already a runaway winner. He didn't need that game to win the Heisman. But I'm really hoping that Blake gets to go to the Heisman ceremony, and I really hope he wins the Doak Walker, because he's just such a deserving kid. He does so many good things in the community. He delivers 300 turkeys to people who need Thanksgiving meals the last 2 Thanksgivings, and uses NIL money to do good things. Like a lot of these Michigan players, J.J. McCarthy and almost everybody on the team, they take their NIL money to do charitable things with it. And that's so great, and yeah, so I love Blake, and I sure hope that he can win something. He's had a great season.
And that kid's actually from my neck of the woods, around the D.C. area.
He is. He played for Biff Poggi at a Baltimore area Catholic school. I can't the name of it. I should know it because it's a pretty well known school. But he's from West Virginia, and he went there because he wanted to be part of that program. And it's amazing what you'll see what kids do to be a part of a program that really catches their eye. Speaking of Desmond Howard, he used to get up at 5 a.m. and drive a bus. Take buses from the west side of Cleveland to the far northeast corner of Cleveland to go to Cleveland St. Joe, because that's where he believed he could get the best education and become the best football and basketball player. He actually envisioned himself more of a point guard, believe it or not. But so he had these long, circuitous bus trips just to go to school every day and come back, and that's kind of what if I recall correctly, I think it was like a 90-minute each way trip for Blake to go to school. Yeah, geez, how many hours are there in the day? How do you do that? I don't know, but great kid. Everybody loves him here, and we're really hoping for great things for him beyond W's for the team.
Exactly. Well, Steve, I hope to see you in Indianapolis on Saturday. I'm making the 9-hour trip from here, and I'm in Cockeysville, Baltimore area. So I'm going to make a trip out there to the game in Indianapolis, and hope to see you in the press box. And hopefully,
definitely, I appreciate that. And my son and I, Derek, we co-authored a book on Michigan football, but we write for a Substack for Substack.com at the Kornacki Wolverine Report is the name of our publication. So I just wanted to give a shout out for us for that, for anybody who might be interested in checking out what we've been writing.
All right, cool, awesome. And you also do the Wolverine Report too, so that's cool as well, right?
Well, no, I just do the Kornacki Wolverine. It's the Kornacki Wolverine Report. Okay. And Derek and I do, and at times I work for the Toledo Blade as a features writer. I have written some Michigan stories because they've asked me to. Such as Shemi Shembek with Bo's son talking about the rivalry game, and he knew Woody Hayes real well, and things like that. I went to the funeral home for Gary Moller's visitation, and great man and a great neighbor of mine, who's really missed. So I do some college football at the Toledo Blade, but my 99.8% of the time I'm doing features away from football.
That's true. Well, I hope you're on your way to the Michigan Virginia game, right?
Pardon?
Are you on the way to that Michigan Virginia game, right? Are you going there?
It's breaking up or something. I hear you saying Michigan, and then I couldn't.
Okay, are you going to the Virginia Michigan basketball game tonight?
No, I was.
Okay.
I was, but I had a change of plans because I had to do my day job and focus on something. So
okay.
I'm gonna watch that on TV. I would love to be there, but I'm gonna have to watch that on TV.
That's cool. Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming on, and I hope to talk to you soon. I hope to see you Saturday.
Absolutely, Chris. Introduce yourself. I'll look on the seating chart, and you do likewise. And it'll be nice to meet face to face. Say howdy.
Nice
safe
to see
travels.
You. I will. You have safe travels too. All right, see you.
Okay, Chris.
All right, see you.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, folks. That was Steve Kornacki, who writes for the Toledo Blade, but normally he does stuff on his other day job. He writes for the Kornacki Wolverine Report. So folks, we're going to wrap up the show here. It's top of the hour. We'll get you guys ready. Next week, we'll be back on this program, back here on the show. Before we got to go, we forgot to say congratulations to U.S. Soccer, who beat Iran today.
Yep, they
beat Iran in a big game. That's for folks who are soccer nuts. 1-0. They moved to the knockout round, taking on the Netherlands on Saturday at 10 a.m. So hopefully anybody's around watching that during college game day and all that stuff. We'll be back next week, next Tuesday. We'll be back here next Tuesday night, recapping the Big Ten championship game. Plus, we'll get ourselves ready for bowl season. I'll try to get some holes on, get somebody from the one of the bowl season games, see if we could get one of them on. So, in the meantime, thanks for joining us tonight. We will see you all next week. In the meantime, safe travels, Adam, and be careful.
Thank you. It's called Safe Travels to Indianapolis, Chris. Everyone enjoy championship Saturday and also NFL Sunday. So
exactly.
We'll see y'all next Tuesday night.
See you later, folks.